Omo a guru vajradara sumatimo nisha sane karm Utta vardanya shri bara varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum Om guru vajradar sumatimo nisha sane karm Utta vardanya shri bara varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum Om guru vajradar sumatimo nisha san Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dhagi Jitsun Lama Tuje Chen Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu Su Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sungi Nawa Tsedu So Tseji Nyingne Sowa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Vesu Lekshune Yila Sambe Dede Malupa Geme Lungi Drubra Jingelo Sonyi Sodan Digdun Shabe Tse Dungi Namge Yesu Lekshune Labchen Sonyi Yonsu Zobadan Chera Nyedun Chawra Jingelo Chanchu Pargi Nyinsen Tukun Tu Nyu Peme Siru Lekshune Chanchu Drube Gegen Kunshi Shi Tungen Dela Drubra Jingelo Dagi Lona Chola Chopa Dan Chemi Samjurang Emba Shiwada Chedan Tumbe Dede Malupa Beme Lungi Drubra Jingelo Dorna Tingne Tserat Techi Pardo Nega Tamchetu Rese Kemne Lama Keleme Tukche Chingi Dala Siksu Sol Gongyab Drewe Nyamda Dachala Jetson Lame Tuche Rabgongne Kodan Sunge Nawa Dralme Tu Nyamsu Nyungwe Kesan Toprash Kewa Kuntu Yanda Lama Dan Rame Chiki Pela Longchech Sadan Lamge Yente Rabzone Dorje Change Kopa Nyurto Visho Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke Tudan Dagi Ten Yerme Chikto Jingi Lu Makyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Makyuke Sundan Dagi Makyuke Tudan Dagi Ten Yerme Chikto Jingi Lo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Soha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha. Sangye chodan soge chanamla chancho pardo dani kyapso chen dagi jinso gibe sonamgi drola pinchre sangye drupa rasho sangye chodan soge chanamla chancho pardo dani kyapso Dagi jinso gibe sonamgi drola penchre sange druparasho sange chedan tsogi chanamla chanchu pardo dani kyapso chi Dagi jinso gibe sonamgi drola penchre sange druparasho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. We live in a reality that is so-called interdependent. We live in a reality where everything is constantly interacting with everything that is around itself. And where we look to it well, we will see that every small action, every small choice, every small thought, every small phenomena, everything. Nothing is there out of nothing. And nothing is there completely independent and not interacting with the rest. Everything has a very important role, actually. And for whatever reason, very often we have this sort of expectation that there are important moments in life, there are sometimes some important things that happen, and then the rest in between is just like meaningless. Not so important, really. When actually, everything that we experience, even the important moments, they are built up by very small things. There is not even one experience that is not built by all the others together. So, when we look at this so-called interdependence, there are many ways of analyzing and looking at it, but one way is to see how everything is interconnected. And this means what? Every small part has the same level of importance. Every day when we wake up, what we think, what we do, where we go, who we meet, what I say, what I think, all of this, it has a very, very strong importance in all of this together. No? This makes me remember one physicist, and I don't remember his name. My memory for dates and names is really terrible. But it was in the beginning of the computer era, and he was making probability calculations. And one time he was especially making probability calculation regarding weather, to predict weather. And at a time, he was able to make these very complex calculations based on the first computer that they were made. He was making this together with IBM. So they were able to make one computer that was making the calculation, taking into consideration 8 decimals. Okay? So which means after the 8th decimal, it would round up or down, it would round the number. Okay? So he made all the calculation, taking into consideration 8 decimals, and he got a certain result. Then he got an insight and he said, but what if I remade the whole calculations taking into consideration more decimals? What would happen, So he was able to manage with IBM at the time, and then they made a computer that would take into consideration 16 decimals. So he remade the whole calculation taking into consideration 16 decimals, which means instead of rounding the number on after 0.0000001, whatever, he did it up to 16. So it means he did the same identical calculation taking into consideration very, 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 very tiny numbers. And the result was completely different. So out of that, he said this famous phrase, which is something like that. He said, the flapping of the wings of a butterfly at one side of the ocean can create a hurricane on the other side of the ocean. And this is actually science, this is physics. We are not talking about philosophy. But we look in life, everything is like that. Every small action we do is like the flapping of the wings of the butterfly. No? It's like the 0.00000000001. What we say, what we think, the choices we make, the people we meet, everything. But that's what actually build up reality. No? Nothing is just suddenly happen big. Everything that is there, it's made up of very, 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 very small parts put together, So, each of these parts have an incredible importance in the whole. It is something that it's very strong in this way. But for whatever reason, we are not aware of that normally. And we have the tendency to live our lives just as if we were the result of something else, of someone else's choices, of the world around us. And at the same time, we cannot make such a difference, like we are waiting for things to happen. And then suddenly when something manifests clearly, I got sick, this will happen, that happened, good or bad things. When each and everything that we experience has been built up step by step, part by part, slowly, slowly. Nothing comes out of the blue like this, boom. Nothing exists in an autonomous, independent way out of nothing. And if we start to look, it's really incredible how each part is connected to everywhere else. It's very interesting. It's not, I don't believe there is a sort of like a great primordial intelligence behind everything. It's just the fact of how actually things interact with each other. And I interact with you, you interact with the other, you interact, and finally we are all connected, and finally everything works in this way. It's a sort of what some people call the law of cause, chaos, the law of chaos, which everything is connected, but there is not an higher intelligence making everything work in that manner. Anyhow, the point which I want to bring is that in life we have objectives. We can put objectives in our life. We can put objectives, and the main objective that we all have is that we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. That's the main objective that we have. Then we can put care. Then we can also develop a state of greater love and compassion for others and so on. But on the basis there is this wish to be happy and not to suffer. Then, in order to be happy, in order not to suffer, in between we put other objectives. Oh, I want to have a healthy body. I want to be living with a nice person. Oh, I want my house to be in this way. I want my career to go in that way. I want to develop pure samadhi. I don't know, whatever, okay? We can have different levels and different types of objectives in order to reach our main objective, which is that one that we want to be happy. But very often, even though we put a good objective for ourselves, we still have the tendency somehow of outsourcing our happiness. We expect that someone else will make us happy, that something else will make us happy. And somehow we try to behave as a good person, we try to do things nicely, and we wait something to do what we need. And suddenly things will go well. No? But when we look truly through interdependence, we see that things don't happen out of the blue. Things happen because of many, 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 many small parts that interact. And in the moment that one small part interacts differently, it makes a difference in the whole. So, the question that comes out of it is, in order for me to be happy, what shall I do? Because that's what I want. I want to help others, and I want to be happy myself, and together with that I want to help others also. That's wonderful. But how can I do that? What is the best way of doing it? What is the best way of interacting finally in life? So one of the first steps is really understanding that yes, we live in an interdependent reality. And this means that every action is totally powerful and important. More than important, every action, every small part is fundamental. And it has the same level of importance. Okay? It is like, I know it's difficult for us to accept it somehow. To really, how to say, realize it. But when we analyze it, when we look, we will see that every small action has a very powerful effect on us. Every thought, every choice, every word, and so on. Okay? So the question is, which direction shall I put my energy? Which direction shall I interact myself in order to be more stable, be more happy, more peaceful, in order to be of more benefit for others, and so on? That's the first question that we need to put to ourselves. Because, life goes on. And we can be very busy in our life doing many things, many good things even. And we can have a beautiful career, and we can be busy having a nice family, and we can make a beautiful house, and we can help many people. We can do beautiful, wonderful things, okay? I'm nothing against any of this. But very often, we may be trapped somehow into all of this being busy with so many things as a way also of escaping from our own selves, to be able to see, okay, what is going on inside? What do I need to change? What I need to develop, And because it's not easy to look at our own selves. It's not easy to look at our own eyes and say, oh, look at that. I am really selfish. Or I need to be more patient, or whatever. And it's more easy just to be busy with so many things. And I'm not saying it's bad to be busy with things. I'm just saying we need to be careful not to escape from ourselves by making ourselves busy. Okay? Because in this process of making ourselves busy with everything around, life can just pass by. And and then we get in the end of the life, yes, we did many things, but we are in the same place. I have the sensation, like the metaphor for modern times, like in this context, it's like I have ran for thousands of kilometers, but I didn't go anywhere because I was inside the gym, So I go, I run, I make many hundreds and thousands of kilometers, and I am very proud that I have ran so much. But when I look, I am exactly in the same place. We get busy with so many things. We do so many things. Wonderful. But when we look, there we are with our same sufferings, with our same jealousy, with the same attachment, the same ignorance, anger, and so on. Internally, we are exactly in the same, more or less in the same place. So this is something that we need to be careful. Because it's very easy to get lost, thinking that I am doing a wonderful thing simply because I am running. But actually I forgot that I'm not going anywhere. Anywhere internally I'm speaking mainly, okay? So, nothing against running, nothing against doing things. I think it's beautiful. It depends the way how we do. But the question that I want to bring mainly here is, in the middle of all of this that we call life, what really matters? Which is the interdependence that really finally makes a difference? Where shall I put my energy? Okay, this is a fundamental question for us. As we see that we do many things in life, and very often we get busy just making ourselves busy, one of the important things that I believe is that it's not a matter just regarding death and rebirth, even in one's own life. How many lives have we experienced in this life? Many. And we do many things, and nothing against the things that we do, nothing against them. But what happened is very often the things finish, and there we are, we continue. So the main issue for me is not really what we do, but in which way the actions and the experience that we do shape ourselves. The question is not what I do, but what I become through that experience and through that actions. That's the main thing. It's like, I had one experience which taught me a lot. And I was in India and the monastery the first time, I think it was the first more serious exam that I gave in the monastery, of debating exam. And when we had this exam, I studied quite hard to give the exam. I did my best in my studies. And then I gave the exam, and I had no any expectations really. We were in 70 in my classes, and I have always regarded, and I still think there were many other monks which were studying much better than me. And what happened was that there was a day where there was the reading of the votes, no? How do you say in English? The marks, what the results of the exams. And we had this big puja where there were all the results coming, and they would read aloud with all the monks, 1,500 monks, and they would read aloud the name of each one and which were the marks of each one and so on. And they would read mainly the first 5. And then they will read all of them, and then the first 5 need to stand up and receive a kata from the abbot, and a present, and an offering, and like this, no? And there I was, and then I got the 3rd place in my class. And we were 7th, so I was, wow, this sort of fake humbleness, oh, me, nothing, but actually very happy, and somehow inside feeling proud, how good, oh, I am the only Westerner around here, and look at that, I got this. And then even the mind coming, oh, but maybe it's because I am a Lama, they give special treatment to the Lamas. Oh, but in my class there are 7 Lamas. So they put me in the 3rd place, so this means I'm doing well, and this and that. A lot of stupid thoughts come into the mind. And then anyhow, I went there, I stood up, I received the kata, I get everything, and so on, so nice and happy. And there was this happy, warm feeling inside. But this feeling in which somehow, it's strange, but somehow this feeling like I have become someone else, There's some change that happened now, because now I got this recognition, but truly there was no difference. Then I arrived home, and there was Genlakpala, my teacher with whom I lived. And I arrived there, and he knew I went to the ceremony where there was the results of the exams and everything else, and then he just looked and said, hello, hello. And then I said, oh, Genla, you know about the exams? Yes. Nothing, not one commentary, not one word saying, oh, how good, good boy, you did well, nothing, not even a half a word. Then I took the book that I received and I put on the table, for him to see it. Nothing. But very peacefully. He was not doing it with any sort of arrogance or saying you don't. He was not at all having the attitude saying you are not worth anything. Not at all. He was just peacefully, he was acting exactly in the same way he was treating me, exactly in the identical same way as he always did, Not any difference. And then as he was just there, not saying anything, I was just saying, but please say something about it, and I tried to push the conversation and do something, and nothing. And then a lot of movement was happening inside of me. Oh, why, and this and that, and then suddenly I just started to pacify all of that. And I understood inside that, well, actually, I am exactly the same one as before. Okay, sure, everything interacts and there are some changes, but it's not because I got a recognition that I have more knowledge. It's not because I got a recognition that I am a better person. Truly, it makes no difference in this way. And suddenly, I was able just to pacify that grasping for a different image or whatever. And I just went back to say, okay, nothing really have changed in this matter. And I tell you, the best thing that happened to me in regarding that recognition that I received of that exam was the fact that Genlakpala, my teacher, didn't say anything. That was the best thing of all, because it shaped me, it taught something to me. It made me a better person finally. It made something happen inside of me. And it taught me something very important. So, for me, what is much more important is what we learn, what we become, how the experiences shape us more than what I do. Okay, I got a recognition. I have there a certificate, best third student in whatever, blah, blah, and then so what? It's a piece of paper, it's there. But what I become, that's the main issue. So this is, for me, one of the important things that we need to take into consideration, that in life, what is more important is not what we do, even though what we do is important. But the most important is how our actions, what we do, our experiences, shape ourselves, who we are. That's for me the most important of all. It's like we go for a vacation, beautiful vacation, wonderful experience. But after the vacation finished, who have I become? Who is the person that came back home compared to the one that left? Is there any difference? Do I have more peace, more joy? Am I more jealous, more unsatisfied? Is there any difference or not, That's the main question, finally. Okay, I think this is quite clear, right? Okay, then. So, once we see that actually, yes, we live in an interdependent reality, and we don't want just to stay going around, walking around and not reaching anywhere. We want to make something that really makes a difference in our lives. We want to become something that finally we are better. One of the questions that we make to ourselves is truly what makes me happy, and truly what generates more suffering. What is generating me suffering? And if we look if we analyze in a sincere way, with a correct discernment, we'll finally get to the conclusion that our own suffering is being caused by our own defilements. It's being caused by our own anger and insatisfaction and jealousy and envy and so on, which actually ultimately is caused by our own selfishness, that it's caused by our own ignorance. Okay? Now, making a long story short, making simple, but it's very, very important for us actually to understand where it is coming from, our own suffering. Because what we really want is to be happy, and we need to understand within ourselves where this is coming from and what we need to do to deal with it. So, it's like when we have a sickness, In order for us to get cured, sure, the medicine is important. But before taking the medicine, I need to have a correct diagnosis. I think we have all seen, or in ourselves or in someone else, someone that have a sickness, have very strong symptoms, but is not able to get a diagnosis. And not having a correct diagnosis, what happened? We don't know what to do. Can take many different types of medicines. Some of them will help a little bit. Many of them will harm even more. Why? Because we really don't know what's the problem. So, knowing the problem is fundamental. Having the correct diagnosis is the first part necessary in order to get cured. But in order to get the correct diagnosis, I must be able to look clearly. And once I get the correct diagnosis, then I can apply my energy into the medicine, into taking the medicine. That's what will make the healing. The diagnosis is not able to cure anything. The diagnosis is able to direct which is the process of healing that I need to follow. But once I have the correct diagnosis, then I can choose the correct process of cure that I need to follow. So if we would go ourselves to Buddha, also because actually, even if we look to ourselves, very often what we try to eliminate, the sickness or the symptom? The symptom very often. And what happened when we just try to eliminate the symptom? Very shortly after, it comes back again. So, if we would go to Buddha And you say, oh, Guru Buddha, like going to a doctor and you say, I feel sick. And you say, oh, what are your symptoms? Oh, I am insatisfied. Very often I feel sad and I get anxious, and it doesn't matter how much I do, finally it's never enough. And there's nice people around me, but they do this and the other one do that, and this is not enough, and I don't feel well here, and then my body is painful, and then my mind is unhappy, and then there is this and that, like I'm not really peaceful. Sometimes I'm a little happy, sometimes then I am not again. I'm not able to have stability. Truly, there is always something coming and going, and finally I'm not really, really stable and happy. Then Buddha looked to us and said, okay, you are sick. So what's my sickness? You have selfishness, which is created by the virus of ignorance. So then we go, okay, how can I get cured from that? And there will come the whole treatment. But the fact is that the main cause of our suffering is our obsession with self-gratification. It's this mind of constantly thinking and being obsessed with the I and the my. If we just stop to think, have we ever got angry, jealous, envy, or anxiety or fear, where the I and the my had nothing to do? I'm not able to recognize a moment of that. If we really look, all our anger, jealousy, envy, all these different states of minds, like insatisfaction, all the states of mind that truly brings the suffering, they are coming from where? From our own obsession with self-gratification. That's where it's coming from. But it's important to see it, because if we don't see it clearly, not conceptually, if we don't feel it, we will not put the effort to change anything. But if we truly analyze well, we will see, that's at least my own conclusion. As Geshe Chekawa would say in the 7 points mind training, Lelen tamche chigla da kuin la karin chewa gom lembe kore rangnet sam tonglen nibo pel marcham tonglen nibo pel majan lembe kore rangnet sam tenyi lung la gyom barcha. The part is all that the part which explains how to practice the tonglen, the practice of giving and taking, that we will see later. But starts by saying Lelen tamche chigla da. Recognize the one or banish the one to blame for everything. We need to blame one thing for everything. Normally, whenever something happens, do we have someone or something to blame for? Normally, yes. But if we look from this external point of view, then we can never find one cause for what we are experiencing. It's just many, many, many things put together that give the results of what we are experiencing. But if we go to look for one main cause of our own suffering, whatever conflict we experience, whatever difficult situation we are, whatever suffering we experience, what is the main cause? It's our own selfishness. This self-grasping, this self-cherishing mind, in which we are there just obsessed by the I and the my, and we are not able to look at others really. Okay? So, from this point, really, if we observe every conflict, starting from the personal conflicts, up to family, job, national, international conflicts, even to wars, where is all coming from? It's not because of a lack of resources. When we have a fight with someone, if we really look, where is it coming from? From selfishness. From each one thinking on one's own self and not being able to see the other, not being able to open oneself to the other, not being able to give priority to the well-being of the other. We're always there obsessed with the I and the my. And that's what is creating all the trouble and all the suffering. And sometimes we even say, yes, but because of his selfishness that I am like this. I am quite good, but he's too selfish. That's why we're fighting. And instead of really seeing the other. So when we look to our own suffering, where is our own suffering coming from? From our own selfishness. Okay, Lelen tamche chigla da. banish the one to blame for everything, our own selfishness, our own self-cherishing. Self-cherishing in the sense of this obsession with the I and the my, which to eliminate self-cherishing mind doesn't mean to stop taking care of ourselves. It means that it's called to equalize and exchange self with others. It means we need to reach a state in which whenever I do something for myself, I'm doing it also for others. Whenever I do something for others, I'm also doing it for myself. It's where we make no more difference actually between ourselves and others. My happiness is as important as your happiness is as important as my happiness. We don't make more that distinction. So it's not like, otherwise normally what happens is that we live in this duality. When we start thinking, oh, it's important to be altruistic and this and that, then very often we go to the duality when we do things for others, it's a sacrifice. When we do something for ourselves, we feel guilty of it. And that's wrong. That's not the way how it's supposed to be. The path is that in which when I do something for myself, I'm also doing it for others because I need to be well in order to be able to help others. And when I do something for others, it is also for myself because I love others and I want them to be well. So it's also for me. So, in all of this, once we understand that yes, my selfishness is the main cause of my suffering, I need to make a change on it. Then we need to start putting effort into bringing light into. I am jealous won't make my jealousy to become less. The difference comes by putting effort into the antidotes. When I see anger, I need to put effort into love and compassion. If I am very unsatisfied, I need to put more effort, more love. We need to direct on defilements. If I see how bad I am, then I am on the right track. Then it's enough. It's almost like if we need to say sorry to someone how bad we are, and then everything will be fine. But it's not like that. No? If we suffer like hell because we are too selfish or because we are too envy or because we act with a lot of jealousy or whatever, it won't make us better. It will make, if I am too jealous, I need to put effort into develop into rejoicing. I need to rejoice. That's what will make the difference. You know? If I have too much miserliness, I need to develop generosity. I need to learn how to share. We need to put the effort in the antidote instead of remaining blocked within the poison. And recognizing the poison is an important step, because also, if we just look at the light and say, oh, how beautiful is love and this and that, I can think a lot about love, but if I don't see my own selfishness, if I don't see my own anger, if I don't see my own darkness, I will not direct the light making any progress. So we need to see in order to develop the light. So, the first step here is recognize our selfishness as the one to blame for everything. Recognize our own selfishness as the main cause of our suffering. And then we put effort in order to change our behavior, to change our attitude. But this first step, it's something very important. And it's not a matter of an intellectual game, okay? It's a matter of looking, where do I suffer? Where do I react negatively? Because there's the danger of us entering into that state. It's quite dangerous, in which I know that selfishness is the cause of all suffering. I know that the defilements are creating sufferings. But that person must stop doing this, and that one must stop doing that, and this is not good like this, and that is not good like that, and so on. And somehow we make this division between what we know and how we relate to reality, you know. It's like if one thing is daily life and the other thing is dharma. It's not like that. I'm just showing, this is one danger. In Tibetan it's called chotik. Chotik is when we listen so many times to teachings that at some point we become, how to say, waterproof. We become impermeable, yeah. How do you say in English? Huh? Like we are not touched by it anymore, you know. We know everything, we think it's right and beautiful, but it doesn't touch us so much. We should be careful for that not to happen. Because otherwise, there we are, you know, we just, yes, love and compassion is so important, and bodhicitta, and this and that, but finally there we are complaining because this one said this, and that one did that, and because of this, and because of that, and then we go into conflict here and there. But that's where we need to recognize that selfishness is the cause of everything. Why am I in conflict? Oh, because I am totally altruistic and he's too selfish. No. If I really have the wisdom, I will find a way. I'm not saying that situations don't need to be changed and we shouldn't look for solutions into things and so on. But we must recognize our own selfishness. We must recognize our own attachment to the I and the my and this obsession that finally generates all the rest. And it's from that recognition then our practice of tonglen can become true and deep and strong. If we do not follow the first step of recognizing and banishing the one to blame for everything, then the practice of tonglen may become quite superficial. First we must recognize where is the selfishness and why it's there and how I need to eliminate it, that's how bad it is for myself. Then we put effort in the antidote and it comes with a different strength. Okay? And just one thing to conclude this part is that when we talk about recognizing selfishness, we are not talking about recognizing the concept of selfishness as the main cause of suffering. We are not talking about a philosophical thought, oh yes, selfishness is the cause of suffering because of this and that and that and that. No, we're talking about our own selfishness as the cause of our own suffering. Is it clear the difference between the two? Because otherwise we can become beautiful preachers, but not good practitioners. And this is something that it's very dangerous to happen, that we have the whole knowledge and we know here and there, but finally we are not applying to ourselves. It's like, it's very good to know that ignorance is the cause of suffering. It's the root of suffering. But not ignorance. My ignorance is the root of my suffering. I need to see it so that I can apply an antidote towards it. So here, when we talk about tonglen, we need to see that my selfishness, it's not selfishness in a whole and understand, yes, love and compassion will be the solution and selfishness is the cause of suffering in a very generalized, beautiful, idealized view. No, into me, my. Other people I don't know, myself. Where is my selfishness? Is it creating my suffering or not? Am I selfish or not? Once we see it, then we don't need to blame ourselves, we don't need to harm ourselves, we don't need to punish ourselves for it. Then we need to say, oh, I need to put effort into the antidote. That's what we need to do. Direct ourselves to the light. If it will solve to see the negative part and to blame ourselves for it, in practice of self-healing, we wouldn't have the 5 Dhyani Buddhas representing our qualities. We will have some sort of archetype representing all the negativities, and we will see all of them inside of us, and we'll see how much bad we are because we have the negativities, you know. But the whole point is recognizing ourselves with the Buddhas, which is our qualities fully developed. That's what we need to connect with. But we must see the defilement and connect to the antidote. Our own. Not someone else, not like an idealized and defilement, our own. And then we apply our own antidote. That's what actually makes the difference. Okay, I think it's quite clear, right? Well then. Once that we see the importance of dealing with our own selfishness and doing something to eliminate our own selfishness and so on,
Then, from that it comes the fact that we need to put effort into the antidote. And there are many qualities that we need to develop into this life, into the path to enlightenment. There are many, many qualities for us to develop. And very often we talk about three main qualities, which is what in Tibetan is called Ketsun Sangsum. We need to be wise and have good knowledge and be well learned. We need to have Tsumpa, which means to have a good morality, which is having a good behavior and a good conduct of body, speech, and mind. And we need to be Sangpo, which means to be good-hearted. But from all these three qualities, the main one is to develop a good heart. I saw Rinpoche saying this many times. Even like when giving advice to monks in different places, he said, best is if you are well-learned, have a good morality, and have a good heart. If this is not possible, at least keep a good morality and have a good heart. If this is not possible, minimum, need to have a good heart. That's the most important of all. So, from all the many qualities that we must develop on our path, one of the main important qualities is developing a good heart, having real love and compassion towards others. This is what really gives us the best level of happiness and satisfaction and well-being. From my own experience, the greatest experiences of joy and happiness that I have ever experienced came from loving others. Truly. And this is something that it's very strong. But, first of all, in order to love someone, first I must be able to see him or her. I cannot love someone without seeing him or her. There is a danger of developing this very idealized view of I need to love everyone, but I truly am not seeing anyone. What do I mean by seeing others? To see someone, it means to be able to be with the person and just recognize the person's needs and the person's qualities and sufferings and so on, independently of myself, without relating the other with me, without relating the happiness or the suffering of the other person with me. Just seeing the person, okay, there he is, there she is. That's all. And that's quite difficult, actually. Very often, even relating to our own families and friends and partners or anyone else. Very often, we love, we have compassion, but very often through the self, through the I and the mind. It's like, yes, I like you, but in relation to what you do to me. And if you treat me in the way how I don't like you so much as before. But in order just to see you, in order just to be able to in order just to be able to be in contact with the person and see the person for what the person is, without needing to relate to judge the person in relation to myself and to what I think and so on, just being there and just seeing the other. That's not easy. But that's very important. Very important. There is the danger of sometimes, I don't know, I have difficulty putting into words, but sometimes there is the dangers of us more than loving the person, loving the idea of loving the person. Because we develop an idealized image of ourselves that we must love all. So I love everyone, but I don't see anyone. I don't know if it's clear, this concept. It's like, it's more important me loving you than you. I don't know, it's clear, this idea. This is a danger that can happen. Huh? It's something that can happen, that we get so obsessed with the idealized image of what we should be, that we don't even look to the other, and we don't see the other. We just see that, okay, I must love you, and I am focused in myself loving you, but I don't see you. It's better than being focused in hating others, but still, that's not the real thing. So one story that helps us to understand this is the story of a Sangha. A Sangha was a great, great master in India. in the history of Buddhism, one of the most important masters in Buddhist history. They were called Gendruk Choknyi, the 2 excellent and the 6 jewels, the 6 ornaments. And he's part of the 2 excellent ones, which is Nagarjuna and Asanga, one of the 2 most important masters in Buddhist history. And there was a moment in his life in which he recognized that he had a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding, but he missed having true love, like developing real compassion and real love within himself. So he went for retreat, and he was doing a retreat of Buddha Maitreya. Buddha Maitreya is the personification of love. So he went to do retreat on Buddha Maitreya, and first he did a retreat for 3 years in a cave by himself. And after 3 years he said, okay, no result. I had any vision of Buddha Maitreya, he didn't felt any big change into himself. So he said, okay, I go back to the village, to the monastery, and maybe I am of more benefit there than being here by myself, which was actually meditating like more than 12 hours a day. So what happened after that is that as he was going down, he met an old lady first. And this old lady that he met, she had a small container full of needles, iron-made needles, and then she had some metal bars and a piece of cotton in her hand. And she was like passing the cotton into the metal bar. And then he asked, oh lady, what are you doing? And she answered him saying, oh, I am just consuming the metal in order to make a needle. And then he said, wow, what a perseverance. If this lady is there with so much patience, with so much perseverance, there, grabbing, passing the cotton on the iron to make a needle out of it, what are 3 years of my life to develop great love? That's nothing. So he went back to meditate. And then, just one thing I didn't say, and it's not part of the story, but one time I was in Tibet, in one place called Namtso, which is a sky lake in the north of Lhasa, some 6 hours from Lhasa. Very beautiful place. And then we were there, and then I was walking, and then I saw an old Tibetan lady. And I remember this story when I was there. He told me she was with a stick. On the end of the stick there was like a string, and then there was one metal thing. And then she was doing like this, like if she was fishing. And she just had this metal thing going in and out of the water of the lake. She was the whole day doing mantras and doing this the whole day. Like in the middle of nothing. This lake, it's really far away from anything. Like it's really, really far away. And there was this lady in the banks of this river doing that. And then I asked the lady, what are you doing, And then with a very strong confidence and faith, such beauty, with dignity, so beautiful way, she answered me, I am actually she answered me like if it was the most obvious thing, and I was completely stupid that I couldn't understand it actually. And she's saying, I am printing, she used a different word, but we could translate I am printing the images of Buddha in the water. She had a mold of the image of Buddha, with all the metal, like to make tsatsa, but instead of printing into earth, she was printing in water. So every time she was putting in it, And, she had, for her, it was the most clear thing. She was printing the images of the Buddha, and all the Buddhas spreading to the whole water and everything, and it was the most beautiful thing, And for me, it touched me very much when I saw that, because I saw what, again, perseverance. I don't know how many, most probably she was doing at least 100,000 of this, and passing her time there, and with such a pure motivation, and doing so beautifully, And sometimes we have difficulty to meditate for 2 hours, So anyhow, Asanga, when he saw that with this lady, he said, okay, I go back. What are 3 years? Nothing. So he went back. After another 3 years, 6 years passed, no result. He didn't see Buddha Maitreya. So he said, I go down. And then as he was coming down from the mountain, he saw a place where water was dropping, one drop at a time. And by dropping always in the same place, it made a hole in the stone. And he looked at that and he said, wow, look at that. Something so small as a drop of water can make such a big hole in such a hard stone. What are 6 years of my life to eliminate my own selfishness? That's nothing. So go back to meditate. Another 3 years, no result. 9 years total. He was coming back and then he saw again something else. He saw a place where there were birds, were a nest of the birds. But in order for the birds to enter, to reach their nest, they needed to go past very narrow on a big wall of stone. And every time they would pass, the tips of their feathers would touch the stone. And by doing that, they consumed completely the stone where the feathers were passing. So he saw that and he said, wow, something so soft, so gentle as a feather of a bird, by passing again and again in the same hard stone, could change the stone and shape the stone. What are 9 years of my life to shape my mind into great love? That's nothing. So he went back again. Another 3 years of retreat, no result. At this point he said, okay, now this time I really go back, after 12 years altogether. And as he was going back, when he arrived near to the village, the first sentient being that he met was a dog. And when he saw the dog was sick. The dog had a wound, and the wound was completely infected and was full of worms inside. And when he saw that, he felt like so sorry for the dog. And he had such a love for the dog. And when he saw the dog, he wanted the dog to be happy, but not only momentary happy, but ultimate happiness. And when he saw the suffering, he wanted the dog to be free from suffering, but not only the momentary suffering, ultimate suffering of samsara in every aspect. And he wanted to help the dog so much. Then he went to see the wound of the dog, and he saw all that worms, and he wanted to take out the worms. But when he went to look at the worms, he had the same compassion to the worms also. He saw that the worms also suffered. The worms also wanted to be happy. So he went the same love towards the worms also. And he saw that if he would take out the worms with his hand, he had no place to put them, because if he would place the worms in the ground, he would harm them. And he would kill the worms and harm the worms. So he took his knife and he cut a part of his leg in order to have some flesh where the worms could rest. And then after doing that, he went to take the worms, and he couldn't take them with his hand, because the hand was too rough and he would harm the worms. So he went with his tongue. And again, here, this is not written in the story, but I believe that even though, because the story says that he closed his eyes, so with all the compassion and love he had, it was still disgusting. Otherwise, why would he close his eyes? That's my own idea. Anyhow. So he closed the eyes, and then he went the direction of the dog, and then he would go more near, and he would never reach the dog, and finally he fell with his face in the ground. And when he looked around, he was looking for the dog, and he couldn't find the dog, and he looked in front of him, and Buddha Maitreya was there. And the first question he did to Buddha Maitreya is, where is the dog? And Buddha told him, oh, I was the dog. And they said, and why you didn't come all these years to see me, and to show yourself to me? I've been waiting this moment for 12 years. And he said, I was always with you, but you couldn't see me. Then the story says that he took Buddha Maitreya on his back, and he took Buddha Maitreya around the whole village to bless the people and for everyone to see Buddha Maitreya, but nobody was able to see him. So finally, Buddha Maitreya took him to the Pure Land of Tushita, where he gave him teachings. And then he came back, he passed one morning in Tushita, which was 50 years in the human realm. And then when he came back, he wrote down the texts of the teachings that he received from Buddha Maitreya, which are called the 5 Dharmas from Maitreya, Chamche Denga in Tibetan. On one of them is called the Abhisamaya Lankara, the ornament of clear realization, one of the most important texts, which is the basis for Lamrim also, okay? Which is a commentary on the Sutra of Perfection of Wisdom of Buddha. Anyhow, The part of the story for me important here is that when did he develop true great love? Not when meditating in an intellectual, idealistic idea of love. Was when was in touch with one being, and was when he was able to see that dog and to see that sentient being and to develop. By seeing him he got love, and by seeing the dog he could also see the worms and have the same love and compassion towards them. Sure, the meditation was very important because it was where he trained himself for the real thing. He trained himself in love and compassion for such a long time that when he was in touch with someone that was suffering, he could right away develop this true love and compassion by seeing. When Buddha Maitreya said, I have always been with you, it means we all have the potential to have great love and compassion within us, but most of the time we are not able to see it. And when Buddha Maitreya said, I was the dog, it means where is great love? Is in each and every sentient being. Is by loving every sentient being then we can develop the great state of love. Remembering that Maitreya is the embodiment of love. So, where is the opportunity to develop great love? By loving each and every one. But by starting by one. And when we open truly our hearts to one, then we can open to everyone. We just need to be careful not to remain in a very idealized idea of having love to everyone because I am Buddhist, and I am from the Mahayana tradition, so I must love everyone because I want to follow the path of the Bodhisattva because that's the right thing to do. So we develop a sort of idealized image of ourselves that we need to love everyone, and we are worrying more about loving others than about others. I don't know if it's clear, this. So the first thing that we need to do is to see others, to be able really to see them. And by seeing them, then we can truly open our heart and love them. But in order to do that, we need to train ourselves. And that's where luckily we have teachings that have been given to us and techniques that have been transmitted to us from a Sangha himself also. The lineage that we have comes also from a Sangha. And that's where comes the practice of tonglen, of giving and taking. These are meditation techniques that help us to develop this love, that helps us to see others, because this is something that we need to train ourselves into. It's not something that is just coming spontaneously, automatically out of the blue. We need to train ourselves into it. And that's where it really makes the difference. Okay? Once we understand that the process of developing love and compassion, it's something that is important for us and so on, we need actually to start putting effort and energy into doing it. And it is something that is not going to come out of the blue. It's not something that we are going to develop love and compassion and patience and so on like this. It takes effort, it takes time, but it is possible. Let's say the good news most of all is that all of us have the potential and the ability to develop these qualities. But it's a process that is gradual, that takes time and takes energy. No? But we have the tools, we have the means for it. That's why in Buddhism we call normally the process of listening, which means where we acquire information. Okay, I need to develop love and compassion, eliminate selfishness and so on. Comprehension, have no any more doubt about it whatsoever. Make that our own knowledge and not the repetition of what someone else said. And the last but not least, meditation. We need to familiarize ourselves with it. The main process is a process of training. It's a process of familiarizing ourselves. And the training means repetition. We can learn almost anything by repetition. Something that initially is difficult, when we repeat, it becomes easy. Just as Shantideva used to say in the Bodhisattva Charivatara, Komna lawar migyur pengote kanya yemain. There is nothing that is not easy once you get used to it. Once you get familiarized to it. So, because of that, it is something that it's really important for us to understand the power of familiarization. But what do we need to familiarize ourselves with? Not the concept of love, but with the mind of love, with the state of love. Because when you say, how do I meditate on love? It's not by thinking about what is love and how important is love and so on. Then we are meditating on the concept of love or the importance of love. When we meditate on love, we need to induce ourselves to the state of love and remain within that state. That's when we get familiarized with the state of love. And sometimes we think that to meditate on love is just to think about love. No, it's to induce ourselves into that state. And luckily, there are many techniques that help us to induce ourselves to the state of love, compassion, patience, joy, wisdom, and so on, so that we can actually develop that. We have very clear techniques that were taught to us from generation to generation, starting from Buddha Shakyamuni arriving to us. And then luckily, these have been transmitted to us, and that can really work to help us to develop these qualities within ourselves. So, the bad news, which is not a bad news, but let's call it like this, is that no one can meditate for us. We need to do it ourselves. The good news is everyone can do it. But we need to do it. And the good news is that we have the tools, we have the lineage, we have the methods, we have the possibilities to actually go down and do our own path. And it works. It truly does work. And there are many different methods to develop love and compassion, but one of the most powerful ones that I have ever learned is the technique of giving and taking, the practice of tonglen. That's what we are going to see today afternoon and tomorrow, because it's a very valid technique to develop altruism, love, and compassion. And it's such a strong meditation that it's quite common that people, after starting to do this meditation, they get some sort of inner rebellion. Because selfishness starts to be attacked and saying, no, you don't need to do this. This is not the way. This is not good for yourself, or whatever. And there is movement happening inside. This happens sometimes when learning tonglen also, and we're starting to do. To know how to do tonglen is not useful. It's useful to do it. But it's something that is there. It's like, okay, training is good. But it's like training also the body. For example, anything that we need to learn how to do, if we repeat it a lot, we can learn. But if I want to go to the Olympics and I want to, get a gold medal on whatever sports, okay, let's say there's a marathon or whatever, is it enough to train myself for 1 week? 10 days? Then I stop and then I train again for 5 days. Then I stop for 1 week and I train for 2 weeks. Then I stop for 1 month and then I train for 3 months. Does it work in that way? No. To train ourselves physically, it must have everyday training with constancy. And slowly we do more and more and more and more and more, slowly until we reach there, until we are really able to do it. Our mind is the same way. We react in a way we don't like. We induce ourselves to react differently. It's not coming easily. Then we induce again, and then we induce again, and then we induce again, and then slowly it becomes natural. And then we are able to do it. And once we are able to do it, then we need to continue doing it. Otherwise, we lose it also. Until it becomes totally natural and spontaneous. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? So based on that, we have the fortune, and I feel so happy to be able to share it, to have these teachings which were taught for centuries and have been working for centuries with so many people. And these are teachings that were kept somehow secret for a long period of time. Because the condition necessary to be taught was that the one learning must have the total determination to put it into practice. That was the main condition which was required. The teachings of Lojong were not given if the person learning didn't have the total determination to put it into practice. Because to know the concept of the practice of tonglen doesn't make much sense. It makes sense to do it, to practice it truly. So, we have this beautiful opportunity, but that's why I want also today and tomorrow, this afternoon and tomorrow, to practice, to give the explanation, the techniques, which we already explained in a more detailed way this last Christmas and New Year course. But the main thing is we need to do the practice together. So I want for us to sit together and to do the meditation of giving and taking. But here there is another issue also. How can I meditate on love and compassion if I don't know how to meditate? It's like wanting to write a poem but not knowing how to write. In order to write the poem, first I must learn how to write. Once I know how to write, then I can write the poem. So first thing is starting to meditate, learning how to meditate. Once I learn how to meditate, then I can start to meditate on love and compassion and wisdom and many other ways. So I like to give the emphasis this afternoon and also tomorrow, first into very basic and very simple levels of how to meditate, and then we'll enter into the meditation, how to meditate on love and compassion through the practice of giving and taking. Okay? So this is basically, in few words, what I wanted to say today, and this morning was mainly like giving an introduction of understanding, okay, being able to recognize where is the darkness so we can put effort in the light, recognizing what is the sickness so that we can apply the medicine. And the process is like this. First I recognize the sickness and I make a diagnosis. Then I choose the right medicine. But then there is a process of taking the medicine for a long period in order to get cured. It's not immediate. Because a chronic disease. It takes time. So, first we recognize our defilements as selfishness as the cause of our main cause of our suffering. Then we take the medicine, which is the practice of tonglen, and we learn how to do it. But then we need to take the medicine for a long time by doing the practice. So, the role that we have here to these 2 days is understanding the need and receiving the technique so that after we can apply it with constancy. Okay? So this is basically everything for this morning. So now we can stop for lunch, and then we will come back later to focus more on the actual practice of tonglen. Okay? Jetsun lame kotse rapten chi namkar tinle chochur gepat losan tempe dreme sasum gi drove munsel tatu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin ninsen takto delekpe Concho sumke jinge lom, concho sumke ngodrup sol, concho sumge trashishon. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Oma huntam balame sangerim boche, kyo balame tamchorim boche, trim balame gendurim, kyamne kuncho sumla chopab.